You know, I used to be a lot into conspiracy theories. Um, Trying to remember some of the things I used to think about. I remember black helicopters, that's for sure. But what really was disturbing me was the Waco incident. And what happened was there was this cult that they were locking and loading out a lot of. Sorry, I'm kind of tired today. Lock and load, and they were surrounded by ATF agents, government agents, and that who knows what really happened. But it looks like the ATF agents shot the dog, and that's what started the gunfire. They just overreacted, and it resulted in, I think, the government just basically massacring these people. What do I mean by massacre? You know, they just basically treated them like, dehumanized them, and then treated them like the enemy. Okay, so, but you know what I was getting from people was that they were just Christians, and they had a right to bear arms and all this stuff, and it was all like one-sided, you know. And you know, and it took me forever of just researching it and watching videos. And back in those days, we didn't have YouTube, so we pretty much were stuck with what you see on the news and just what was being circulated, underground videos and on talk radio shows like Art Bell. And Art Bell was just stoking those coals, just making you get more and more paranoid. It was a lot like being in a cult when I used to listen to Art Bell. It was just really one thing after another, you know, and all these things to get your mind just going and going and going. And I'm really susceptible to this. I tend to be kind of a obsessive person, you know, and I think it's kind of to my benefit sometimes, because I notice I stick on one topic and I think about it, and I can really grasp certain things, you know. That's probably why I talk about, like, you know, went on and about the post-trib rapture, and now I'm going on about the conspiracy stuff. This is my next thing maybe for a while. I don't know, until something else comes on, but this is really dear to my heart. I think I might actually be able to help people in understanding what to do about it, you know. I think the key thing here is don't stay away from stuff that's disturbing. Just stick to the Bible and watch kind of from a distance. Don't go out and try to figure it out everything. That's the biggest mistake you make. Because when you try to figure all this stuff out, you're taking in too much information, you know, and you can't process it all, and your mind is just going to start warping, and then you're going to get paranoid, and then you're going to lose all sense of reality, and so that's not a good place to be. And so kind of what happened to me was that Waco thing messed me up, and then a year later was the federal Murrah building was destroyed, and they're saying that was an inside job, just like 9/11. And there's some truth to those things. You know, I'm not saying that it was, you know, it's possibility is true, but the understanding that the government, how corrupt the government was, can shock people so badly that they can just get so disturbed by it, you know. And we shouldn't be disturbing people. If you read the Bible, you understand that the world is corrupt, and that's, I think, you know, just to stay away from the world, and the world's corrupt is the most important message. And all this other stuff, why do we have to know everything about everything? I mean, it's, well, you know, I hear people say, you got to know all this stuff, you know, you could be accepting the mark of the beast, and you got to understand what's going on. Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, it's a good idea to pay attention to what's going on out there. Maybe we have the internet, maybe, you know, the internet and all these things are to our advantage. But it's also, I think, destructive. There's information out there that is going to burn people up in the head. You know, their heads are going to go crazy, and you don't want that. It's really bad. So you need to take breaks from it for sure. And but I just basically look at it like this, like I was saying earlier, was that I started to realize that all these conspiracy theories, a lot of them, not all of them, I say a lot of them, but a lot of them are an explanation for something that is spiritual in nature. It's like a physical explanation for something spiritual in nature, or basically blaming the world for the ills of the world when not really seeing that we're kind of all share to blame for the shit. You know, we should all share the blame. In other words, if you have not repented, you're still in darkness, and you're still looking at the world as though all the stuff that's going wrong is somebody else's fault. And if you don't blame God, then you've got to blame somebody else. And that's the problem, is we've got to look at ourselves and say, well, all this junk that's going on is not necessarily orchestrated by conspiracy. I mean, think about it. There's money to be had. You know, money is the big thing, you know. And then the secondary thing is we have things like our media, our television, that's controlled by the elites, you know. And it's not necessarily all controlled by one person. It's, you know, I think there is an inner conspiracy, but the basic stuff is just who owns these companies and what's their agenda, and, you know, these broadcasting companies. And you don't need to do your homework. It's they're selling stuff, you know. So those people are rich people, and the Bible says rich people are corrupted. They will do anything they can for their money, and so they're corrupting people. If they keep people in bondage to sin, then that's more money coming down the pike, because they're selling a lot of stuff that is based on sin nature, you know, based on people's sins, you know, junk food. I'm looking at Papa John's, you know, they want people to be corrupt so they don't eat the right food. They want to go to Papa John's, or they want, you know, I mean, there's all these different things, even weight loss, you know. I mean, I'm overweight, and so, you know, they can make money off of me in my denial of the fact that I need to diet and exercise, you know what I mean? There's money to be had in it, so they want to keep making you think that it's okay, you know, that there's nothing wrong with you. It's someone else's blame. You just need to find the right magic pill to take, and it'll fix it, you know. So that's what I think is the problem, is that people are always looking for a solution, and they say, oh, that's why things are the way they are, but there's really more simple explanations than that. I mean, yes, it is complex. Don't get me wrong. I'm familiar with you guys. I don't want to even say what I know because I don't want to brag about it, but I know a lot of stuff. I've been to meetings about it. I've been to organizations. I've been in not involved in organizations, but I've been very close to some major organizations. Some of you know who I am, so you know exactly what I'm talking about. And I don't want to say anything because I'll get attacked, you know. So I mean, I'm very close to the center, you know, especially the pro-life movement, you know. So I've seen the garbage that's out there. I'm not a naive person. I'm old. I'm not young. I'm not an 18-year-old kid out here. I'm 46 years old. And I've seen a lot of stuff go on, and it's nasty out there. Don't get me wrong. But when I started reading the Bible, I started to see, oh, well, the Bible knew this the whole time. So that makes me feel like, well, God's in control of what's going on. I don't have to freak out about all this stuff. And, you know, these things, these theories and stuff, they just make you just really scared of the conspiracy. And there's a verse in the Bible that says, fear not a confederacy. If you can also, some of the versions say conspiracy. Fear not a conspiracy, but fear the Lord. So these conspiracies are trying to get people to fear man, which is the Illuminati and all that, instead of fearing God. And I mean, think about it this way: a lot of this stuff that's being put out is probably disinformation by the Illuminati. In fact, what more, to distract away from the spiritual wickedness of people? What better way to get people to just go in further in darkness than to send out a bunch of information that gets people to think about someone else other than themselves and to get their mind focused on someone else? It's really easy to get that.